the next step would be to get a very simple request going against the ChatGPT API. So let's jump back to the API documentation. The model behind the ChatGPT API is a bit hidden, and in order to access it, we need to call an endpoint. And information about it we can find here if we select chat. And this is actually called a chat completion. So let me show you what I mean. We need this URL that you see here. And additionally, we need to specify the post request method in Postman. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this address, go back to Postman, open up a new tab. The first thing that we will do is to select post, because if you forget that, nothing is going to work. The next step is to paste the URL api.openai.com/v1/chat/completions. Make sure you don't add anything after or before this address. It needs to be exactly as you see it. Otherwise, things will not work. Let's go ahead and send it and see how it works. Again, we're getting 4.1 unauthorized, so it definitely not works. The authorization is configured in the collection, so we need to save this request in the collection. Let's go ahead and click on save. OpenAI is already selected. And I'm going to go ahead and name this chat completion and hit the save button. If we send it once again, we're going to get another error. This time it's 400 bad request. Whenever we see 400 bad request, it means that we did something wrong. There's some required data we haven't provided, or the data that we have provided is invalid. So it's always our fault. Additional information about why this is happening is available in the response body. In this case, it says we must provide a model parameter. So in this case, we haven't specified which model do we want to use. In our case, we actually want to use this model here, ChatGPT-3.5-Turbo. So how can we provide this? Let's first copy this value, go back to chat completion, and the next steps are super important, so pay attention to them. We're going to go ahead and select body. After we have selected body, we're going to select raw. After we have selected raw, even more important, we need to select JSON. Do not leave this to text because it's not going to work. It's super important that you select JSON because the message that we're sending here is formatted as JSON. So the first thing that we need to submit is actually the model. So this will be a JSON object which starts and ends with a brace, and between double quotes, I'm going to write here model, column, space, and then again quotes. I'm going to write ChatGPT Turbo. Super important that you use double quotes here. Let's go ahead and submit this. And what we're going to get back is again 400 bad requests, but this time it's a different error message that we're getting. It says here messages is required property. So obviously we need to provide the messages property. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to amend our JSON. I'm going to add here a comma. And also between double quotes, I'm going to paste here messages, column. And we're not sure exactly what we're supposed to do here, what we're supposed to provide. So let's jump back at the API documentation, try to understand how to do that. If we're looking here at this endpoint, we're going to see here in the request body, there are two things that we need to provide. Model, this is something that we already provided. And it even says here which models are currently supported. And also messages, which is required for the chat completion. And it needs to be in a specific format. Luckily here, there are also examples that we can simply go ahead and copy paste. However, I wanted to take this approach of you seeing these errors because it's actually an important skill to be able to read the errors that you're getting, figure out what the API is trying to tell you, and then figure a solution on your own. This format itself with the messages here is slightly more complex. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this value that you see here, go back to Postman and paste it here. You'll notice that in the editor, there's nothing marked red. For example, if I forget here a comma or something like that, this entire thing will appear as invalid. So you'll notice something red here and something red here. If you notice something in red in the editor, do not submit the request because it's not going to work. Check again if you have a valid syntax here and try to figure out what you did wrong, why it doesn't work so well. Apart from this, the way this is written here is not very easy to read. So I'm going to click here on Beautify, and this will make things a bit easier. Now let's go ahead and submit this request as it is. And most importantly, what we see here, we're getting a status 200 OK, indicating yes, everything worked fine. And apart from this, if we're looking here in the response, what we will see here, it's a bit hidden. There's a lot of additional information that's coming, but we'll see here this message with the content. And this is essentially ChatGPT answering back and say, we have said hello, and the response to our hello is, hello there, how can I assist you today? So now we have managed to call this API. Of course, it's not a super advanced example, but just getting this to work, it's very important. And we're going to start building more on top of this initial call. If at this point in time you got stuck, check the resources folder, because I'm going to include my OpenAI Postman collection as a JSON file, which you can easily import. So click here on import and import that file. And all you have to do is click here on the ellipsis, click on edit, go to variables, and provide your own API key here. But I hope you managed to get this to work on your own.